I tried to save my marriage. I brought flowers, her favorite dinner, gave her compliments. And she screamed at me for being too much. Then I saw the credit card statement. In 1 month, thousands of dollars on spas, boutiques, and massages. On herself. On us. Zero. I left to stay with friends in Oregon, just to survive. And when I came back, she suddenly became affectionate. She cooked dinners, kissed me on the cheek. I was happy. But then I found the video from the Tesla camera. While I was standing at the ocean shore, she was bringing her lover into our bedroom. Before we start, please don't forget to like and subscribe. You ever look at someone you love and feel like you're staring at a stranger? That was me, standing in our bedroom doorway, watching my wife Diane twirl in front of the full-length mirror. She was wearing a brand new designer outfit, something glossy and tight, the kind of thing that didn't come from any clearance rack. Her eyes sparkled with vanity, admiring herself from every angle like I wasn't even there. Wow, I said, leaning against the door frame, forcing a smile. That dress ought to be illegal. I might need to call the fire department just to cool down. She didn't even blink. Didn't laugh, didn't turn, didn't smile. Just adjusted her lipstick and said, flat as a brick wall, "You're always so dramatic, James." I chuckled, though it came out hollow. You know, it's been 2 months. She turned then, slowly, like I just ruined her night by speaking. 2 months since what? You know what? I took a few steps closer. Since we last connected. She snorted. God, James, not this again. What do you mean, not this again? We're married. We're supposed to actually want each other, or at least talk about it when things go cold. You think I haven't noticed? Her voice rose an octave, biting. You think I don't feel the pressure every time you hover around me like a lonely puppy? Pressure. I blinked. Diane, I'm not asking for a miracle. I'm asking for a moment. One that doesn't feel like I'm begging. She rolled her eyes and turned back to the mirror, tugging at the hem of her dress like it mattered more than what I was saying. That's rich, she mumbled. Coming from the guy who used to fall asleep before I even made it to bed. I felt that one land. Yeah, I've been tired. Working late, fixing up this house, paying off the credit card you treat like Monopoly money. But I never once stopped wanting you. And what? She snapped, spinning to face me. You think Chinese takeout and 2 compliments are going to turn me into your fantasy again? That's not fair. No, you're not fair, she shouted, stepping closer. You only seem to notice me when I'm in something tight or when you're feeling neglected. Do you even hear yourself? I notice you all the time, Diane, I said, my voice low. I notice you when you spend 2 hours getting ready and don't look at me once. I notice how you stopped kissing me goodnight. I notice how the woman I married is in the room, but not with me. The silence after that was thick. She stared at me, arms crossed, jaw locked. Then she said, "That's the coldest thing I've ever heard. Maybe I just don't feel that way about you anymore." I felt something in my chest cave in. Not shatter, just quietly collapse, like drywall behind a fresh coat of paint. She turned away, started smoothing her hair again. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My fingers twitched at my sides, aching for something to hold on to, anything. I walked out of the room without another word. I didn't say anything for months, hoping maybe she was going through a phase. But phases pass. This felt permanent. And that night, watching her smile at herself while looking straight through me, I realized something painful. I wasn't in a marriage anymore. I was just in a house with someone who used to love me. The next day, I found myself pushing fries around a plate at Murphy's Grill, a little corner diner just down from the office. I'd been coming here for years, mostly out of habit. The food wasn't great. The service was slow, but it was quiet enough for a man to spill his guts without half the city hearing. Across from me sat Mark Jensen, my friend, coworker, and the kind of guy whose sleeves always had the perfect roll. We'd shared lunch breaks for the better part of 5 years, usually talking about clients, deadlines, or whether we'd survive another quarterly review. But not today. Today, I just needed someone to listen. She told me last night. Maybe she just doesn't feel that way about me anymore. I poked at the burger I hadn't touched, like I was asking her to donate a kidney instead of show some basic affection. Mark leaned back in the booth, chewing slowly. Ouch. Yeah. I forced a chuckle, but it cracked halfway through. I mean, we've been in a dry spell before. But this, it's like she's in her own world. I come home, she's dressed to the nines, makeup done, hair perfect, but not for me. Never for me. He wiped his hands with a napkin and reached for his iced tea. So what are you going to do? I don't know, man. I shrugged. Keep trying. Crawl back into bed and hope she remembers I exist. I thought last night would be different. I tried talking again, and she basically shut the door in my face. Mark studied me for a moment, then said casually, I can't relate. I looked up, eyebrows raised. Must be nice. He gave a small smile, not smug, just honest. Look, I know that sounds bad, but Anna and I, we're solid. We still talk, still laugh, still. He paused, searching for the right word. Connect. Sometimes we fight, sure, but it's always followed by something. A walk, a movie night, just effort. We make time. That's how it's supposed to be, right? I nodded slowly, his words hitting somewhere deep. Not because he was bragging, but because it reminded me of what I'd stopped expecting. I used to think it was just a rough patch. I muttered, fingers tapping my glass. But lately, it's like I'm on one side of a wall she built, and she's throwing bricks at me from the top. Mark leaned in a little, then maybe stopped trying to climb it. What's that supposed to mean? I mean, he said gently, you're killing yourself trying to prove something to someone who doesn't even see the effort. You keep reaching out, flowers, dinners, conversation, and she meets it with silence or sarcasm. That's not a marriage. That's a job you don't get paid for. I let out a low laugh, shaking my head. You make it sound simple. It's not, but it is a choice. You keep showing up, James, but she doesn't. And at some point, you've got to ask yourself, how long are you going to keep knocking on a locked door? That question stuck with me longer than it should have. I didn't answer it. Didn't have one. The waitress came by and dropped off the check. Mark slid it across and tossed a 20 down before I could reach for my wallet. Your turn next week, he said. Thanks, I mumbled. He stood, grabbing his coat. Hey, for what it's worth, you're not crazy for wanting to feel loved. That's not some needy thing. That's human. I nodded, eyes low. Yeah, and if you ever need to crash on my couch, he added with a smirk. Anna makes a mean chili. I gave him a weak smile. Don't tempt me. After he left, I sat there a little longer. Just me and my cold burger and a head full of things I didn't want to think about. But I did. And for the first time in weeks, maybe months, something shifted. Not anger, not pain, just a quiet flicker of defiance. Like maybe I wasn't crazy. Maybe I deserved more than the silence I'd been settling for. That evening, I pulled into our driveway a little later than usual. The passenger seat held two things I hoped might shift the atmosphere inside our house. A paper bag full of Diane's favorite Chinese takeout, extra sesame chicken, no broccoli, and a bouquet of fresh lilies. She used to love them, said they reminded her of her grandmother's garden in Vermont. I remembered. I still remembered. Walking up to the front door, I rehearsed the words in my head. Nothing fancy, no big speech, just effort. That's all I had left to give. The living room lights were on. Diane was curled up on the couch with her tablet, legs tucked under her like always. She didn't look up when I came in. Hey, I said gently, holding up the bag and the flowers. Thought I'd bring home dinner. Lilies, your favorite. Her eyes flicked up, then back down to the screen. I already ate. I stood still for a second, letting that sink in. I texted, I said quietly. I didn't check. She replied, not even pretending to apologize. I set the takeout on the kitchen counter and walked over with the flowers. Got these for you. She looked at them blankly, then gave a short breath that might have been a laugh. Lilies, really? What is this, Valentine's Day? No, I said, trying to smile. Just a Thursday. She took the bouquet reluctantly, sniffed it, then set it down on the coffee table like a grocery flyer. You're trying too hard, James. I sat down across from her, arms resting on my knees. Trying's all I've got left, D. She shook her head. I just don't understand why you keep doing this. Like, what exactly do you think is going to change? Flowers and takeout aren't therapy. I'm not trying to fix us in one night, I said, my voice calm but steady. I'm trying to reach you. Just get a little piece of you back. Diane stared at me for a moment, then muttered, maybe that piece doesn't exist anymore. That one cut deep. I didn't say anything right away. After a long pause, I tried one last angle, gentler, a little vulnerable. That dress from yesterday, I said softly. You looked beautiful in it. Couldn't stop thinking about it all day. Thought maybe tonight, if you wore it again, we could try. Are you serious? She snapped, finally looking straight at me. You bring home greasy food and some discount lilies, and now you want me to play dress up like some prize wife from a 90s sitcom? I sat back, stunned. That's not what I meant. But that's what it feels like, James. You keep treating me like a broken vending machine. Push the right buttons. Maybe you get something out of it." Her words echoed across the room. "I'm trying to be your husband," I said, low and tired. "But I can't do it alone. I miss you. I miss us. But if you've already made up your mind, then just say it." She stood, gathering her tablet and the throw blanket. "I'm tired." "That's not an answer." She looked down at me, her face blank. "It's the only one I've got." Then she turned and walked down the hall to the bedroom, closing the door with a soft but final click. I sat there, staring at the untouched food and the lilies wilting in the warm lamplight. No yelling, no slamming doors, just silence, and the slow, steady realization that I was the only one left trying. The house was quiet, too quiet. The kind where you hear the clock ticking and feel every breath like it's echoing in the walls. Diane had gone to bed 2 hours ago, alone again. I stayed in the living room for a while, watching a basketball game I didn't care about, just for the noise. Eventually, I wandered into the office. My old leather chair creaked under me as I sat, staring at the screensaver on my monitor. A ripple of stars floated across the black screen like some ironic metaphor. I wasn't even sure why I opened the banking app. Maybe I needed distraction. Maybe I needed to feel like I was in control of something. The screen lit up. Our joint account. I scrolled without thinking, but then I stopped and scrolled back up. $180, Eden Spa and Wellness. $249, Belivo Boutique. $342, Skin Haven Med Spa. $92, Glow Bar Nails. My brow furrowed. That was just in the last 8 days. More entries followed. Designer stores, premium salon visits, a custom fragrance shop I didn't even recognize. I clicked into the month's spending summary. We'd spent more on personal beauty care this month than on groceries. Correction, she had. I sat there staring at the screen, my jaw set. 2 months of cold shoulders, rolled eyes, and sarcastic digs, while she pampered herself like royalty. While she lived in spa robes and boutique outfits. While I spent my evenings eating reheated leftovers and talking to someone who only looked up from her tablet to dismiss me. I didn't speak. I didn't curse. I didn't slam anything. But something inside me cracked open, not in pain this time. In clarity. I leaned back slowly, arms folded, staring at the numbers like they were telling me a story I'd somehow missed. A story about where her energy had gone, where her care had been spent, and it hadn't been on us. She was investing in herself, in her image, in how the world saw her, but not in me, not in us. And I had allowed it. That thought didn't bring shame. It brought something steadier, resolve. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't thinking about how to win her back. I was thinking about how to win myself back. I closed the laptop slowly. The soft click of the lid felt like punctuation on a sentence I hadn't had the courage to say out loud. Not yet, but soon. Because something had shifted tonight. Not in her. In me. The morning light filtered in through the blinds like nothing had changed. But something had. I woke up early, earlier than I needed to. Diane was still asleep, curled away from me in that familiar position, like the edge of the bed was safer than sharing space. I watched the ceiling fan spin lazily for a few minutes, then slid out from under the sheets and padded quietly to the kitchen. Coffee brewed. My laptop glowed, and I opened up a tab I hadn't touched in years, flights to Oregon. One way, refundable, flexible dates. 3 years ago, I promised the guys we'd do an annual coastal meetup. Just a handful of us from college who used to surf together, crack bad jokes, and talk about everything but work and bills. But life got in the way. Or maybe I let it. This time I booked it. No hesitation. 3 nights, Cannon Beach. Nothing fancy, just a rental with sand in the floorboards, a fire pit out back, and a view of the water that could melt stress right off your shoulders. When Diane walked into the kitchen, hair a mess, mascara smudged under her eyes, she looked surprised to see me dressed, bags already near the door. "Where are you going?" she asked, blinking. I poured a second cup of coffee and slid it across the counter to her. "Oregon. Taking a few days to reset." She squinted. "Like a work thing?" I smiled faintly. "Nope. Just space." "Space," she repeated, her voice flat. "Yeah. It's been a while. I need to clear my head." She glanced at the suitcase, then at me. "And you didn't think to talk about it first? You didn't think to talk about the $340 at Skin Haven Med Spa?" I said gently. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed again. No response. I picked up the bags and headed for the door. I'll call you when I land. That was it. No goodbye kiss. No hug. Just her standing barefoot in the kitchen, holding a cup of coffee she didn't even want. I landed in Portland a few hours later, and the moment that salt-tinged air hit my face at Cannon Beach, something uncoiled in me. Marcus, Jay, and Ellis were already at the house. Beers in hand, fire pit blazing, cooler full of fish tacos. They hollered like I was some long-lost hero returning from battle. Look who actually showed up without a leash around his neck. Jay laughed, clapping me on the back. Miracles do happen, Ellis said, tossing me a cold bottle. I didn't say much at first. Just let it all wash over me. The wind, the laughter, the freedom in their voices. We stayed up late, swapping stories, roasting marshmallows, and poking fun at our receding hairlines. By day 2, we were out on the water. I hadn't surfed in years, but the board remembered me better than I remembered myself. I wiped out more than I stood, but every splash felt like a baptism, a cleansing. We sat on the beach afterward, sandy and breathless, watching the waves roll in. Marcus elbowed me. You're smiling. Haven't seen that in a while. I wiped salt water from my eyes and shrugged. Feels like I've been underwater for months. Didn't realize how deep I'd sunk. Sometimes you gotta leave to remember who you are, he said. I nodded. The tide whispered in agreement. That night, I walked the beach alone, barefoot. The sky was streaked with indigo and gold. I let the cool sand press between my toes and listened to nothing but the sea and the beating in my chest. And for the first time in a long time, I felt it, me. Not the man trying to fix what didn't want fixing. Not the husband begging for scraps of connection. Just James. And that was enough. The sun was starting to dip when my phone buzzed against the driftwood bench beside me. I was sitting outside the rental house, watching the sky melt from gold to lavender. A half-finished bottle of root beer sweated beside me, and the guys were down at the fire pit arguing over who was the worst surfer. I could hear their laughter rolling in with the breeze. Diane. Incoming call. I let it ring twice before answering. Hey, I said, neutral. Her voice came in sharp. James, what the hell is going on with the card? I blinked, pulled the phone from my ear, glanced at the screen again like I might have misread her name. I'm sorry. I just tried to pay for my nail appointment, and it declined twice. Then I checked the app. There's nothing left. Not on the joint card. Nothing. I leaned back, letting the cool wood rest against my spine. Yeah, I'm aware. You're aware. She snapped. Are you out of your mind? Why would you cut off our account without even telling me? I didn't cut it off, I replied calmly. I froze the spending temporarily until I've had time to review everything. She scoffed. You don't get to just decide that. I do actually, I said, because it turns out I've been funding more than just groceries and gas. Boutique clothing, spa packages, a $120 hydrating facial every 10 days. You've been spying on me now? No, I said simply. I've been looking at the joint account. That's not spying. That's called paying attention. There was a pause. Then, you're being dramatic. I needed those things. They helped me feel like myself. While I stopped feeling like anyone at all, I asked. My tone never changed. Not once. Diane, this isn't revenge. It's rebalancing. I'm just making sure we don't keep spending money on appearances while the foundation's rotting. Oh, now you're some philosopher. I didn't reply. Just let the silence fill her side. She huffed. So what? You freeze the account, take off on some solo trip, and expect me to what? Sit here and think about my choices. I expect you, I said carefully, to understand that things are going to change. I'm not asking for permission. Her voice cracked, just a little. Wow. So that's where we are now. I could hear it. That flicker of disbelief. The sound of control slipping from her hands. I stood and walked slowly toward the edge of the bluff, letting the wind catch my words. Yeah, I said. That's exactly where we are. Then I hung up. No yelling. No insults. Just a clean, deliberate end to the call. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt it. Not anger, not fear. Just control. The flight home felt different than the one that took me away. Lighter. I came back without souvenirs, without guilt, without the weight of needing to fix anything. Just a carry-on bag and the kind of clarity you can only find standing knee-deep in Pacific salt water, staring at your own reflection in the tide. When I stepped into the house, it smelled like citrus and perfume. Diane had cleaned, or hired someone to. The floor gleamed. The living room was staged like a magazine spread. For a moment, I almost believed in the illusion. She was in the kitchen, placing a mug on the counter like she'd been waiting. "You're back early," she said without turning. I set down my bag. "I'm back when I said I'd be." She finally faced me. Her makeup was done, lips glossed, hair brushed into careful waves. Presentation perfect. Emotion unreadable. I motioned toward the dining table. "We need to talk." She folded her arms. "About what?" I pulled out a chair and sat down. "About what I expect moving forward, and what I won't tolerate anymore." She arched a brow but sat across from me. "Oh, so we're doing ultimatums now?" "No." I shook my head. "We're doing honesty." She rolled her eyes. "Fine. Let's hear it." I leaned forward, elbows resting on the table. "I want respect. Not silence, not sarcasm. Actual adult communication. I want intimacy, not just the physical kind, but presence, partnership. I've been operating alone in this marriage, and that ends now." She tilted her head like she was considering it. "You mean sex?" "Just say it." "I mean connection," I said. "And yeah, that too. It's part of marriage. It's part of what makes us us, or what used to." Diane let out a short, humorless laugh. "Well, you don't exactly inspire romance, James. You walk around this house like some wounded little saint." My expression didn't change. "That's the thing. You don't see me. Haven't in a long time. But I'm done trying to earn your attention like it's some prize behind glass." She tapped her nails against the table, slow and deliberate. "So what? You think a weekend with your bro pack made you some kind of alpha now?" "No," I said. "But it reminded me what being me feels like. And it's not this. Not whatever we've been living." A silence stretched between us. She smiled, a thin, smug, rehearsed thing that didn't reach her eyes. "All right. You want to compromise? How about once a month? That should satisfy your little crisis." The words hit the table like a dead bird. I stared at her, and then I laughed. Not out of joy, not out of bitterness. It was the kind of laugh that escapes when you finally stop pretending. "Once a month," I said, shaking my head. "Then you deserve only $10 a day." Her smile faltered. "What?" "You heard me," I said. "If my value is measured by a calendar box, then so is yours. $10 a day. No more spa trips. No more boutique runs. No more swipe and ignore. You want transactional? Fine. But you don't get the perks of a partnership when you treat me like a problem." Diane's jaw tensed. "You're not serious." I leaned back, calm as ever. "Dead serious. Starting tomorrow." Her mouth opened to argue, but no words came. Just that look, the one people wear when the game they've been playing suddenly flips on them. I stood. "We're either going to rebuild this marriage together," I said quietly, "or I'm going to rebuild my life without you. I'm giving you the respect of choosing which." Then I walked past her, poured myself a glass of water, and left the kitchen without looking back. Behind me, silence. No snark, no noise. Just the slow realization that I was done asking for a seat at a table I helped build. 3 days passed. 3 days of silence wrapped in politeness. Of Diane walking like she was balancing something fragile on her head. No slamming doors, no cold glares, just calculated quiet. On the 4th morning, I walked into the kitchen, briefcase in one hand, a crisp $10 bill in the other. She was standing by the coffee pot, already dressed, cream-colored blouse, delicate gold earrings. She looked up as I set the bill on the counter. "What's this?" "Your allowance," I said plainly, reaching for my travel mug. Her eyes narrowed. "You're joking." I screwed the lid on my mug and looked at her. "Nope. $10 a day, remember? Just honoring the agreement." She laughed, short and sharp, but not amused. "You're being petty." "No," I said calmly. "I'm being exact. Like you were." Her mouth opened to fire back, but I was already turning toward the door. "Don't spend it all in one place." That one hit harder than I expected. Behind me, I heard the coffee pot hiss, but no footsteps followed. I left the house with a strange quiet settling in my chest, like someone had finally stopped yelling inside my head. But later that day, something shifted. I came home to dinner. Real dinner. Diane had cooked, actually cooked, not defrosted, not ordered. She even lit candles. "Thought you might want something warm," she said, setting down a plate of roast chicken and mashed potatoes. "Your favorite, right?" I blinked. "Since when are you?" "Just thought we could hit reset." I nodded slowly. "Okay." The next morning, she kissed my cheek before I left. The morning after that, she packed my lunch. By the end of the week, she was wearing perfume again, asking how my meetings went, sitting next to me on the couch instead of opposite corners of the house. On the surface, it looked like progress, but something in it felt wrong. I watched her more closely. How she spoke, what she asked, how her eyes flicked toward my phone when I wasn't looking. It was too smooth, too sudden, like a switch had been flipped, like a script had been handed to her. One night, she curled up beside me on the couch, tracing circles on my arm with her finger, her head tilted slightly, voice low. "You know, I've been thinking. Maybe we could get away soon. Somewhere warm. Just us." I turned my head slowly to look at her. "Why now?" She blinked. "What do you mean?" Everything. The cooking, the affection, the soft tone. None of it was here last week. So why now?" Her smile faltered, just a hair. "Because I realized I missed you. That's all." But the words felt thin, as if rehearsed. I nodded but didn't answer. That night, I lay awake in the dark, listening to her breathing beside me. Something was off. This wasn't reconciliation. It was strategy. And whatever it was Diane thought she was fixing, she wasn't doing it for us. The frost on the windshield hadn't melted yet. I sat in the driver's seat of my Tesla, letting the heater run on low, watching my breath fog the air while the dashboard booted up. My coffee was untouched in the cup holder. My tie was still loose around my neck. I had no intention of pulling out of the driveway yet. Something had been gnawing at me all week. A feeling I couldn't shake, even through Diane's newfound affection. Especially because of it. It was too polished, too sudden, too perfect. She made lemon chicken the night before, my favorite. Flirted with me like we were still 25. Wore the exact perfume I mentioned in passing 3 years ago. It was all just right. And it didn't make sense. But then I remembered something. Something small, almost laughable, but sharp. The Tesla's external cameras. Motion-triggered, auto-archiving. I hadn't checked the log since I installed the system over a year ago. Never needed to. But the idea had been whispering in the back of my head like an itch. I was finally ready to scratch. I tapped through the interface. External footage, date selection. My fingers hovered over the calendar. The week I was in Oregon. My stomach turned, but I kept going. Monday, 9:43 a.m. front driveway, motion triggered. The thumbnail showed Diane standing at the front door, alone, arms crossed, waiting. I tapped. The footage played smoothly. The camera's wide-angle view captured the whole front entryway. Cold sunlight, wind in the trees. Then movement. A man walked up the front path. Tall, athletic, gray joggers, black hoodie, gym bag over his shoulder. He didn't knock. He just walked right up. Diane opened the door before he could reach for it. She smiled. Not polite, not awkward. Warm. Familiar. Then she stepped out, wrapped her arms around his neck, and kissed him. Not a peck. Not a greeting. A kiss. The kind that locks two people in a moment they don't want to leave. My hand jerked away from the screen like it had burned me. But I kept watching. She ushered him inside. The door closed behind them. The timestamp ended. Silence filled the car, thick and metallic, like the air after a crash. I leaned back slowly, chest rising and falling with shallow, controlled breaths. She'd been lying. Not just avoiding, not just drifting, lying. While I was standing barefoot in the Pacific surf, laughing for the first time in months, she was here. With him. In our home. In our bed. A kind of stillness settled over me. Not rage, not heartbreak. Just cold clarity that stripped everything down to bone. There was no need for confrontation anymore. No debate, no doubt. The moment I saw her wrap her arms around another man like that, something ended. Not with shouting, not with a dramatic slam of a door, but with the quiet blink of a screen. The evidence was right there, and it had been waiting for me all along. I closed the dashboard, turned off the screen, and sat there for another long minute. The car hummed softly, like it was waiting for a command I didn't have the strength to give. Then I started the engine, pulled out of the driveway, and drove straight to the only office that mattered now. I didn't even think about turning onto the freeway. I bypassed the on-ramp entirely and instead headed downtown, windshield wipers scraping away a thin veil of mist. My GPS chimed, but I silenced it. I wasn't in the mood for guidance. Not from a screen, not from anyone. The file from the Tesla was still on the flash drive in my jacket pocket. I hadn't watched it again. I didn't need to. Every frame was burned into my mind. Diane stepping into that man's arms, the way she tilted her head into the kiss like it was muscle memory, the ease, the comfort, the betrayal in its normalcy. By 9:20 a.m., I was in a steel and glass office building, seated across from a man with silver temples and a stare that said he'd seen it all and had patience for none of it. "James Langley," he asked, tapping a few keys on his laptop. "Tell me what brings you in." I slid the flash drive across the desk. He plugged it in, clicked, watched maybe 10 seconds, then nodded slowly. "Clear as day. Is it enough?" I asked. "To initiate everything?" He nodded again. "It's more than enough. You want to go uncontested?" "She'll contest everything," I said. "But she won't win." And that was it. Paperwork started sliding across the desk. Names, numbers, signatures, dates. My hand moved steadily across each line, like I was signing off on a transaction, like I was paying for something I'd already lost and was just now admitting it. When I left the office, the sun had risen a little higher in the sky, but I didn't feel it. I just drove home slowly, letting each turn calm the last of my nerves. That night, Diane was waiting in the living room, hair curled, soft sweater, her phone put away. "Hey," she said gently. "I was thinking we could watch something together tonight. Something old? Comfort movie." I nodded once and set my keys down. "Sure," I said. "Got something else to show you first, though." Her face twitched. "Okay." I reached into my jacket and pulled out a folded document. Set it carefully on the coffee table between us. She frowned. "What is this?" "Divorce filing," I said. "Court dates in 3 weeks." She blinked like I'd just slapped her with a book. "Excuse me." "I submitted it this morning," I said calmly. "With what evidence?" I stared at her. "The Tesla logs." For a split second, she didn't react. Then her lips parted, and I watched the color drain from her face. "You watched that?" she whispered. "All of it." Silence. Heavy. Stifling. Then she stood up fast, pacing, running her hands through her hair. "James, listen." "No." I stood too. "You listen." I stepped closer, voice low but steady. "You spent months shutting me out, making me feel invisible. Then you brought someone else into our house, into our bed. And now you want a cozy night with popcorn and Netflix." Tears sprang into her eyes, unspilled but trembling. I didn't mean for it to go that far. I laughed, a short, bitter sound. "Then tell me, Diane, how many times a month does he deserve?" Her breath hitched. She turned away, covering her mouth. But it was too late. That line, the one she thought was clever, had come back to cut her. And now it bled. She crumpled onto the couch, shoulders shaking, full sobs breaking through. I didn't know you'd." "No," I said. "You didn't think I could." I picked up the paperwork from the table. "But you forgot who you married. The guy who built this house. Who paid every bill. Who stayed when it got hard. Who begged and begged and begged." Her sobs grew louder, raw, unfiltered. I took one last look at her. Mascara smudged, wrapped in a sweater she didn't deserve to wear for comfort. And I didn't feel anger. I felt done. "I'll be staying at the downtown condo until the hearing," I said, heading for the door. "I'll have the attorney coordinate access to your things." "James, please," she cried out. I paused, but I didn't turn. "I gave you everything, Diane," I said softly. "You just weren't looking when I did." Then I walked out. No door slam. No dramatic music. Just the sound of my own footsteps echoing through a house that was no longer mine. The sky was clear that night. Not the kind of clear that begs for noise or celebration, just stillness. A velvet dark kind of quiet, where stars scatter across the sky like someone shook a jar of glitter and forgot to stop. I stood in the backyard with a fire pit crackling in front of me, the flames hungrily devouring the last of Diane's designer clothes. Silk, lace, denim with price tags that made me cringe. One piece after another, tossed into the fire without a single tug of hesitation. They smelled like her perfume at first, but only for a second. Then it was just smoke. I hadn't seen her since the court date. She didn't fight the divorce as hard as I thought she would. Maybe because she knew there was nothing left to win. Maybe because she was already chasing comfort elsewhere. Didn't matter now. The papers were signed. The condo was mine. The house had been sold. I didn't keep much, just what mattered. My tools, a few books, a surfboard I hadn't used since Oregon but refused to let go of. Funny how little you actually need when the weight of pretending is finally gone. I tossed a red blazer onto the fire. It curled like a dying petal, then vanished. For a long time, I stood there, hands in my pockets, listening to the wood hiss and pop, watching the smoke rise and drift upward like it had somewhere better to be. I thought about all the nights I'd sat in that house, aching for a kind word, a glance, a reason to believe I mattered to her. I thought about the dinners gone cold, the conversations that never started, the man I'd become, just trying to be enough for someone who never truly saw me. And then I thought about the beach, salt on my skin, laughter in my throat, friends who didn't measure my worth in gestures or money, but in presence. That version of me wasn't gone. He'd just been waiting for the smoke to clear. I grabbed the last item from the box, a gold clutch, still with the security tag on it. She never even used it. Figures. I dropped it into the flames. Then I stepped back and let the fire do the rest. No tears, no speeches, just peace. For the first time in a long, long time, I didn't need her to look at me, because I was finally seeing myself clearly. And I was enough. And that was the end of my story. But there's one thing I can't stop wondering. When Diane realized the money was gone and called me in a panic, do you think she truly felt remorse? Or was it just another attempt to control the situation? If you've ever seen someone switch tones that fast, let me know in the comments. Did she do the right thing? Or just react to losing power? Hit that like button if this hit close to home, and don't forget to subscribe. There's more real talk coming.